Team Nice Kyo here. So we're gonna do our factory tool guide today. So before we do that, I want to do like a brief overview of what this guide is gonna be about. So we're gonna go over the tools, not in too much detail, but all the tier 5 tools have gotten an additional buff. With that being said, there are a little bit more options for builds. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the usage. So pretty much like who you should be putting these tools on, or what use you're going to get out of these tools. Then we're going to be talking about crafting, and then we're going to do like some build showcases, some examples, and I'll like kind of like give my thoughts. Before we get into that though, there are a couple of people I would actually like to thank. So Mythos, Viking, Chem, NAMS, Twin Lions, and MRN. Essentially, like when you're testing things, or you're experimenting with stuff, it's really important that you are able to get feedback from experienced players, and these have all been players who have actually been able to give me feedback, or pose questions, or even giving me answers to things that I'm not aware of, or in some cases testing things and then sharing the results with me so I can do like further testing, or I can like determine whether I want to test it. Yeah, they've all been like very helpful with that, so big shout out to them. Also from my own guild, KB Release and Noja. Essentially KB, she's my guild leader. She comes up with these pretty cool ideas about things she wants to implement for our guild, and typically like I'll come up with like a task that I'll take and I'll be like really interested in, and this pretty much happened because of an idea she had. Then Release, because Release is also very good for feedback. He poses really good questions, and we just have very interesting conversations about characters and what they can do. And then lastly, on my guildmate Noja, because essentially like this video, or even any of my build videos, probably would not have happened without input from him initially. He first recommended to me an anti-seal Shishwi build, and from then I've kind of been low-key obsessed with the tool factory. And then like a month after that, I just started really messing around with resistances and trying to test how far we can push them, and we've kind of gotten, now here we are. And then sorry, I just want to get all these out the way. The NXP Discord server, when you're kind of building these tools, I think a lot of people are realizing just how much time it takes, how much materials you need, and how expensive it can be. And that's just making the tools and getting the resources for the tools. That doesn't even talk about all the prep required as far as looking at the characters and seeing, hey, like which characters am I going to defend against, which nature types are going to be most useful to have resistances for, which which jutsus give which buffs, which characters have which debuffs. And the NXP Discord has put together a really I want to say essential resource to making builds possible. If you want to build an anti-darkness character, you can type in darkness whatever in the follow the commands, and you can get a list of characters who have darkness, and you can see if it's worth your while to do. Same thing with paralyze, seal, and all those element effects. So big shout out to the NXP Discord. I think that's run by ICJ. Yeah, essentially like this guide has, and even my own testing has been a lot faster and a lot smoother and a lot more efficient because I've been able to look at this resource and get information from it. Okay, so that being said, let's look at these tools. And I guess like all my supporters, like people who watch the video, this wouldn't actually be possible without you. So I do appreciate the support. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the likes. Y'all are amazing, and I hope we can actually get the community to a place where we're all experimenting, we're all kind of figuring shit out and sharing information, and it's good for everyone. That's kind of like what I want to do. All right, so Ninja tool production. So we're gonna look. There are 43 tier 5 tools that have been buffed. It's a combination of trinkets. We're actually just gonna do this so it's a little simpler. A combination of trinkets, charms, rings, and then weapons. So looking at our first tool, you'll see here we have our trinkets, and we have 3 special trinkets that are representative of the 3 Sannin, or the 3-way deadlock, if you will. So we have the Manda trinket, which is kind of representative of Orochimaru. We have the Katsuya trinket, which is Tsunade, And then we have the Gambuta trinket, which is Jiraiya. You'll notice almost all of the trinkets have ailment resistances, except for these three. They have resistances for nature and ailments, and then they also have 3 stat boost. Most of the other trinkets are going to default to ailments, and they're either going to have anywhere from 2 to 4 stat boosts. If they only have 2 stat boosts, those are going to be dual stat boosts, so you'll have 2 attack maybe and 2 HP. If it's 3, then it's going to be 3 across the board, and if it's 4, it's going to be 4 across the board. So you won't see doubles of 3 or 4s, just the 2s. So like I was saying, trinkets primarily focus on ailment resistances. So you'll see we have confusion, we have poison, we have paralyze, and we have confusion again. When we're talking about trinkets, charms, the charms are a different story. Again, they're going to get anywhere from 4 to 2 stat increases. If they're 4 stat increases, they're going to be singles. If they're 2, they're going to be doubles. And then you'll get, this is probably like the one odd tool that gives a power, but everyone else gives resistances. So you see the 9 tails, 8 tails. So essentially, if you're crafting resistance tools, you're looking at the charms. Lastly, we have our rings. These are more resistance tools, and again, we have anywhere from 4 to 2 stat boost. Those 2s are going to be doubles, and everything else is just kind of going to be different. And then we have our last set of rings, which are the flower rings. This is going to offer a different combination of stat increases, but these also primarily focus on resistances. I don't want to spend too much time talking about each individual tool because, if you're watching this video, chances are you have the game. You can open up the game and you can see this yourself. I don't want to go over information that everyone has readily available. Our last type of tool are the weapon tools. So weapon tools are kind of unique in the fact that they only have 2 stat increases, which is going to be attack and crit, and then they're going to have a nature power boost. The only exception to this rule is the circular shuriken, which offers attack and defense, and it has a slow debuff. Everything else is going to default to what I mentioned earlier. You'll also notice every tool actually has a border around it, and it's kind of symbolic of, or it goes in line with the way we get cards. You'll see at the lowest rarity, tier 1, we have green. At the second highest, we have blue. Third highest is bronze. Fourth is silver, and then 5th is gold. So if you're kind of like keeping in line with that, there's another rainbow or platinum card, however you call it. So chances are we're probably going to get another tool update, and we'll end up with tier 6 tools. Don't quote me on that. I'm just kind of like guessing, but I think someone else has posted some stuff that might also hint at that. All right, so that's it for our tools. Now we're going to talk about usage. So when we talk about usage or what characters to put them on, it's really, really important that we talk about character types. So when we talk about character types, there are 5 types of characters. If you're not aware of that, we have yellow type characters, we have green type characters, we have blue, we have purple, and we have red. You kind of want to have an idea of which characters specialize in which stats, so you can kind of build on those stats as opposed to go counter to those stats. So you'll see here we have a Sasuke, an EMS Sasuke. Yellow type characters, we'll just get into like the little blurb about them. Yellow type characters are the highest, they have the highest base HP and the highest base defense of all character types. So these are really ideal for defensive builds or survival builds. You can stack a lot of HP and defense on them with resistances. Actually, alternatively, they're one of the characters who actually do very well with counter builds too. Essentially, even though they're defensive units, you can actually build them as attack type units because their defense will still be really high, and then you'll just kind of like stabilize their attack. So next, we'll talk about green characters. Green characters are also very defense-oriented character types. They have the second highest base HP and the second highest base defense after yellow. Everything else, they kind of default to average, but they're very good for survival builds just for that purpose. So, if you're trying to get resistances for ailments, nature types, if you want to stack HP and defense, these are really, really good characters to do. Now we'll look at blue types. So blue types are one of the also another high attack characters, I would say. Essentially, they have pretty high. They have the second highest attack in the game. They have the second tier highest crit, and then everything else is pretty average. They do have pretty low defense and pretty low HP, but these builds do specialize in attack type builds. Essentially, like, you want to do attack, and then you kind of want to do a specialization based off of your individual character. So next we'll talk about purple characters. Purple characters are average. I won't say average. They're the most balanced character types of all. Essentially, a purple character is almost like a blank slate. You can gear them towards defense. You can gear them towards HP. You can gear them towards attack. It's really, really up to you. But yeah, they pretty much have the third highest attack, I believe, after red and blue. So these are kind of ideal for more specialized builds as far as like doing whatever you want. Lastly, our last type of characters are red type characters. Red type characters have the highest attack in the game. They have the highest crit in the game, and they have the highest evasion in the game. They lead in 3 categories. So essentially, these characters are really, really good attackers. They're really, really good with evasive type buffs or darkness type debuffs. But if you're building, you know, a red character, typically you want to build them towards attack. You don't want to build them towards defense. Unlike yellow characters, they don't do well when you're building them counter to how they're intended. You'll just end up with subpar defense and not great attack. So that's it for character types. The one exception to this kind of, I guess, rule is our mains. Mains are pretty much, you can stat them however you want. Essentially, you're the player, however you want to play. That's the ideal way to play, you know. So next we'll talk about stats on the tools. So there are secondary stats, there are primary stats, and there are secondary stats. You'll see here I have this EMS Sasuke pretty much geared towards attack. You know, he's a yellow unit with almost 14,000 attack, so we're running a lot of attack on him. You'll see that's 500 attack. A lot of attack. I'm not even going to count all of the attack, but it's safe to say that for my EMS Sasuke, attack is his primary is the primary stat I want for him. Secondary would be his nature power boost. You'll see I have 1 nature power boost, and then tertiary, it's his crit. So you'll see here, you know, again, nature power boost. You'll see here nature power boost, and then you'll see here nature power boost, and that kind of falls in line with how I'm building my Sasuke: attack, nature, crit. You know, you kind of want to have a cohesive unit. You don't want to build. Never mind. We'll just talk about the types. Lastly, then we'll talk about not lastly. We'll talk about my Naruto. So you see here we have a pure defense build. He is pretty much just completely geared for defense. He does have under 12,000 attack and about 17,000 defense, but you'll notice he is pretty much just resistances. He is a resistance monster. And that's what we're talking. So that's our sole focus. We're not even worried about anything else. We're just worried about his resistances. He is a pure defensive build, buff, survival character. So then we have an example of a split build. So those were our 2, like, you know, primary, I want to say focus build, and then this is our first split build we'll be looking at. So this is my Hinata. You'll see here we have her with 4 3-ring replicas, and these are her stats. We have just under 12,000 attack, almost 19,000 defense, and 46% release resistances. For an example, so we're running a 3-ring replica because, like I said, this is a split build. Her primary focus for my Hinata is to be a tank, so I'm gearing her for defense. All of her tools have defense, and then my secondary consideration is attack because I don't want her to be a tank that just takes damage. I also want her to be able to deal a little bit of damage. So we are splitting her between defense and attack. Defense is her primary, attack is her secondary, and then release resistance is kind of tying with her defensive capabilities. If you're kind of wondering like what these tools do for you, so I'll take off all 4. You'll see she's still around 150k POW. Prior to this, I had her running with 4 red tam tools, and you'll see these are upgrade. Like the rings are pretty much better than tam tools. You'll see I actually lose 700 attack. I lose 2,000 defense. I do gain a lot more crit, but I also lose 46% of my release resistances. So for this split build, ideally, this is how I'm going to run her with those 3 rings. Next, we'll have our blue build. So this is my first split specialization build. So you'll see here, I have him mostly geared towards attack, um, attack, and then attack, and attack, and attack. So like I said, primary focus is attack. That's all I'm stacking on him. My secondary focus is my nature power boost, which you'll see I'm running pretty much one for my kunais, and then two for my shurikens, and then as my third kind of like consideration, you'll also see I'm running evasion and then a slow debuff. Essentially, I'm running evasion to test with his Sharingan because, as I said, these tools aren't just for, they're not stat sticks, but we're going to be able to see is a lot more specialized builds. So I'm focusing on his evasion because I do want to raise his evasion. I want to get him to a point where my Sharingan uptime means I'm taking maybe 50 or 60% less hits than I would normally take. Lastly, so we have this Itachi. Like I was saying, the yellow units actually do very well as counter build. So you'll see here, we did lower his defense. His defense is not as high as my EMS or my Hinata's, but he does have a lot more attack than my Hinata does. He has about 13,000, and then he has just under 17,000 defense, and we're running 4 attack tools. So that's my focus for him. You'll see attack and crit, attack and crit, attack and nature power boost, attack, crit, nature power boost. So my primary focus for him is attack. It's then his crit, and then it's nature power boost, which I'm splitting between his damaging attacks, which is manipulate and release. He's actually a very, very well balanced character in the sense that he has, 2 main jutsu types. So lastly, we'll be looking. Well, not lastly. We'll also be looking at Shikamaru. So Shikamaru again. Like I said, purples are kind of for more specialized builds, but we're also running a specialization on attack. I kind of try to build my teams in balance, so I'll have maybe 2 defensive units and 2 straight attack units, or maybe a balanced unit. But like I was saying, he's specialized for attack, and you'll see we're running 3 Four Tails trinkets with attack as our primary stat, and then evasion as our secondary, and then we have our slow debuff as our tertiary effect. So you see we're pretty much just specking him purely for attack and evasion, and then we're running 1 Kusarigama. It's kind of my opinion that nature power boost is not as effective as attack unless you're kind of building a character who has at least 2 attack types with that nature, or you're using it to boost their ultimate. Those are kind of like the only times it's really, really appropriate to run more nature than it is attack. It's also because, if you have a character with 10,000 attack and 50% nature power boost, you're going to be dealing a lot less damage overall than if you have 15,000 attack and 20% nature power boost. You have a lot more well-rounded character who's dealing a lot more damage overall, and then you're going to get that little bit of 20% oomph on their specialized jutsus or their ultimate. So that's it for our builds we're going to be looking at. No, we have one more. You also see we're running a Rin. So for Rin, we're running straight ailment resist, and impact. Use another defensive unit. You'll see we're running the Katsuya tool. Primarily, I'm focusing on seal resist, so those are what I'm aiming the highest for. And then secondary would be her resistances to impact natures, and then tertiary are these 3 stats, because essentially I can't. They're 3 stats, and the rolls are completely random. It doesn't really make sense to kind of like focus on 3 stats as opposed to these 2, so I'm kind of taking whatever I can get here. I will be rolling them as I get better, but essentially what we're focusing on is her seal. So you'll see we have 15, 16, 17, and another 14, so pretty decent. We have about 64% seal resistances. We have 41% impact resistances, 17,000 defense, and then 99,000 attack. So she's a defensive build who's more focused on element resistances as opposed to nature resistances or even defense in general. And then lastly, our last character we'll look at is our Shizune. So again, I'm specing pretty much all my healers to be resistant to ailment, and then on a lower scale resistances. So you'll see here we're running 4 Manda trinkets. The emphasis being stopping the paralyze, and then secondary annihilation resistances. This is actually ideal for dealing with Kabuto. I'm not going to get a lot of damage reduction, but the hope is his pull won't paralyze her and she can cleanse herself. So, you know, 15% here, almost 16%, 17% here, 11% here, that's kind of low, and then 17% here. So you'll see here we have probably one of my weaker characters. You'll see we have 62% paralyzed resistance, around 15,000 defense, and then just under 40% annihilation resistances. So, you know, it's kind of, you want to roll tools based off of what you're looking for. If you're someone who's looking for paralyzed resistances, that's what you're prioritizing. If you're looking for seal, that's what you're prioritizing. If you're looking for slow, you know, for whatever reason, that's what you're prioritizing. It's in your best interest to kind of stick to one stat that you're prioritizing and then kind of, you know, build up on that stat and hope you get better rolls overall, as opposed to trying to max 4 or 5 stats, because that's not going to happen. So that being said, let's look at crafting. So we're gonna go back to our factory. So you'll see here, I'm gonna switch this. Looking at the mana trinket, scrolls and notebooks are pretty much what are going to determine what you can build. If you're looking here, pretty much the cloths and the threads are standard across all trinkets, and also across all charms. So to craft any charm or to craft any trinkets, you're going to need these cloths as a bare minimum, just as a starting point. If we're talking about rings, then you're going to need the rocks. You'll see here we have the bronze, silver, and gold rocks, and that's for rings. And then if we're talking about weapons, also you're going to need the rocks. On a more individual note, we'll talk about scrolls. So if you're unfamiliar with like how the scrolls are colored towards stats, you can just follow this really simple guide. Ignore these first 3, ignore the threads or the cloths, and look at the scroll. So you'll see we have a green scroll here, and then our first slot here is HP. So green is HP. Our next slot is defense. Our next scroll is gray. So gray scrolls equate to defense. And then our next stat is CP, and our next scroll is blue. So blue scrolls are for CP. Then you'll see we have resistance for annihilation, and we have this blue book. So that's what is going to determine our annihilation resistances. And then we have this magenta pink book, and that's going to determine paralyze. And you can just kind of like go down the line like that, and we'll find a different one. You'll see HP, CP, attack. So green, blue, red, defense, gray. And then, you know, slow debuff, brown, tan book. And that kind of just follows that. So yeah. That's it for crafting. So now farming. When we're talking about farming materials, actually first let's talk about this. There is a special mission out. This tool production mission, you can get a lot of materials. So we're just gonna do this quick one. But essentially, if I think in my last video I said these changes are going to start to happen in 2 to 3 months, because it is pretty time intensive and it's gonna take people time to craft these tools. This mission is going to make it possible for it to happen probably in 2 weeks to a month. In 2 weeks to a month, we're probably going to start seeing a lot more mid resistance builds. Some of the players who've been prepping for this are going to have the higher resistance builds. I already know like 5 or 6 players who have like 90% plus builds. Yeah, so it's happening. We're just gonna do a quick 10. But essentially, like right now, this is the best mission you can farm for tool materials. You'll see here I just did like a 10 clear. We have 150 purple, which is evade, 110 red, which is attack, HP. Essentially, you can get all the scrolls, all the notebooks. This is everything you need to craft all of the tools. You should be running this mission. That being said, when this mission is done, we'll look at dailies. So typically, the day is going to determine what you can farm. So today is Tuesday, so you'll see we have blue scrolls, which is for CP. So we'll start with Monday. Monday is a green and purple scroll day. So if you're farming on Monday, those are the days you can get evasion. Those are the days you can get HP. I highly recommend grinding on the specific days as opposed to Saturday. So So like I was saying, Monday is HP and evasion. Tuesday, as you can see here, is CP. Wednesday is attack scrolls, so those are the red scrolls. Thursday is the gray scrolls, so those are for defense. And then Friday we have the yellow scrolls, which are for crit rolls. So yeah, if you're trying to get crit, you want to grind on Friday. If you're trying to get attack, you want to grind on Wednesday. If you're trying to get defense, you want to grind on Thursday. And then Saturday is kind of like your catch-all day. On Saturday, all the scroll and all the notebook materials drop. However, they are at a reduced rate. So essentially, you know, we're going to do another quick clear here. We're going to do like 3. So that's 12. You'll see I get like 5 notebooks, maybe 14. I got no gold scrolls. This was like kind of a shitty one. But you're splitting that on Saturday between every scroll and every notebook. So it's good as a catch-all day, but it's not really good if you're grinding for specific things. And then Sunday we didn't talk about this, and we probably won't be focusing on this, but it is worth mentioning. Sunday are the days you can grind these little orbs. So you'll see here we have attack, HP, defense, and it kind of corresponds to what we know with the scrolls. HP is green, attack is red, defense is gray. So yeah, Sunday is the only day you can get these orbs, or you can get the Metagama beads, which are going to increase your power for nature resistances. Your nature power boost or your nature resistances. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for the tool factory and crafting. I think we have one more. So we'll look at my fortress really quickly, and we'll do like a couple of builds. We'll test a couple of builds actually. So you'll see here, we'll first start with Hashirama. We'll put Hashirama up. Let's look at Hashirama. So you'll see here, resistances. Resistances right now for tools are capped out at 14%. So that means if you're just running the free-to-play tools you can craft from the tool factory, the highest resistances you can get right now, I believe, is 54%. This 14 times 4. 56%. So that's the highest you can get. You can get 50%, 56% mitigation from specific nature types. If you're running like not the non-free-to-play tools or the Shino bundle tools, you can get that a little higher. You'll see here now we have 83%. We're using his roundup tools, and then we're using tools with 2 slots. Ailments are even better. So we're gonna look at ailments really quick because I should have done this before. Ailment, you can roll up to 18%, so you can get up to let's do some quick math here. 18 times 4, 72%. So you can get up to 72% resistances for ailments. So that's things like seal, poison, paralyze, slow. So if you're running an ailment build, it's really, really beneficial. You can actually get really, really good rolls and some good reduction in there. So yeah, but let's get to our example. So you'll see we have Hashi here with 84 release resistances, and we're going to be testing him against our Edo Itachi. So we'll just take a quick look at Edo Itachi. You'll see here he has under 17,000 attack, and then we got pretty shitty metal rod rolls, not for attack but for release nature. So we see we have 10%, we have 5%, and then we have another 5%. So we're running about 20% nature power boost. If you're not familiar with Edo Itachi, he probably has the strongest release shotgun in the game right now. So we're going to test this against our 80% Hashi. We're just going to kind of like see how this goes. So first we'll do like the non-defense debuff. So we'll just hit him like that. And you'll see we didn't even do 10% damage. I've been sealed as a counter. And essentially Itachi is going to die. Unless something miraculous happens. Okay. I didn't die. But as you can see, the shotgun didn't work. At 81%. So now we're going to test it with the defense debuff, and I think I'll just kind of like do that and then stop. So you'll fucking seal. So you'll see that wasn't actually enough to kill him. The shield killed him. But essentially, he was able to survive. We're gonna do this one last time. Um, I don't know why I shielded right after. So you'll see that hit him for less than 50% of his total health. He is going to get the damage over time, but essentially, um, and it gets progressively worse. Essentially, if I put a pot in that room, um, he's not even going to do 50% of his health. So we'll test that against now a 40% release type build. So you'll see here we have 46%. We're going to see like how much damage reduction we can get from there against his shotgun. So we'll use it without his defense down, and then we'll use it with his defense down. So you see, not a lot of damage. Again, like less than 20, about 25%. We're gonna kind of see if we can. That was actually a better one, but it's going to do maybe anywhere from 25 to 50% of her health at 46%. If we defense debuff her, I think we should get like the one shot. Yeah, so we did get the one shot on the defense debuff, but again, like, you know, I'm not running this Hinata just for shits and giggles. If we're running defense, we are of course going to put one of these pots in here because that is going to give her additional defense and survivability. So now we're going to test the defense debuff one shot one more time, and then we'll move on to the next example. So she is buffed now. And shouldn't get hit. Thank you. Alright. So you see, she still has the aura, but it's no longer a one-shot. In fact, it did less than 50% of her health with the pot up, where we had a one-shot kill before. So resistances are definitely kind of like the way to go. So we're going to look at another character. So we'll look at Shikamaru. So as I said, he's pretty much attack and evasion. We're running almost 24% evasion. We're gonna who we're gonna change this? We're gonna change this to someone who has good burst damage. So we're gonna do 7th Hokage. This is kind of gonna be like for evasion. The thing with evasion is evasion only seems to evade normal attacks. But there are ways. We're gonna take this pot off. I don't care about the pot. There are ways you can tag certain characters to evade. One way is darkness. So essentially, once he's applied darkness, okay, I'm gonna need you to stop. Once you've applied darkness, it is now possible to evade jutsus. I'm probably gonna die before I get. Oh, nope, there it is. So you'll see we're able to evade. But the fun thing about Shikamaru's ultimate is it effectively doubles his evasion, and it tags him for an evasion buff. So he now has a lot more opportunity to dodge. You'll see here, like, I'm pretty much with the darkness and the evade, he can't even touch me. So yeah, so that's what I'm working on with evasion. I hope to like have some better concrete results with there. So like, you know, if you're thinking about a character who runs darkness on their jutsus, you know, maybe an evasion build might be what you're looking for. So here we'll look at our Rin, and we'll put on Hashirama. As you know, or as you might have seen, my Rin does have impact resistance and seal resistance. This kind of does make her useful for fighting Hashirama or even being able to survive against Hashirama, as his most damaging attack is his Sage Deity Gates, and then that also applies seal. So the idea here is kind of to get hit by that and not get sealed and not take a lot of damage. We did get sealed, but we didn't take that much damage. So you'll see here, I'm actually getting healed for more than he can actually damage me for. So you see, no seal there. And Hashirama that can't seal you is pretty much kind of like a target, I would say. So essentially, like, you know, this is good for, or even we can do Sage of 6 paths, but I don't want to get too much into that. We'll talk about that. I'll go into a more specific build for that. And then lastly, we'll showcase the who is a good paralyze Darui. We'll showcase Shizune. So again, we're focusing mostly on her paralyzed resistances because I don't want my healers essentially to be down on seals. I don't want them to be sealed. I don't want them to be paralyzed. I want them to be healing. So we're kind of going to not let him smack me with that sword. We're going to try to get him to use Emotion Wave again because that's a guaranteed paralyze versus Black Panther. There it is. So you'll see I wasn't paralyzed for that, and I actually wasn't paralyzed for Black Panther either. It is a 60%, so there is a chance he could do it. But as you can see here, essentially I'm not dead now just because he hit me with a paralyze. If you're familiar with fighting Darui, if you get paralyzed, you're pretty much dead. So yeah, this is useful for that. Also dealing with EMS who has rage. So yeah, and of course Kabuto with his pull. So I think that's it for like as far as build I'm going to talk about or do like short examples for. I'm sorry, like I will be posting a bingo book before Sam. It is going to be on RS. It's going to be on RS Sasuke. I don't want to like waste too much time. I want to do one more thing, but this video is going long. So we'll end it here. Drop them down below. If you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe. I do appreciate everyone's support. It's kind of humbling. But yeah, Demon Eyes Kill out. I'll catch y'all later. I hope everyone's still staying safe.